Hello, this is Yucca from the jarbar.org. This is part 3 of my series of tutorials. I'm going to show you now how we set up VirtualBox. When it comes to developing, I find that VirtualBox is probably my third biggest asset, and the reason for this is it allows me to run an additional operating system together with my current operating system. Why would I want to run two operating systems? Well, I find that for example, Windows is lacking in features like file transfer protocol and secure shell, and I usually have to make use of tools like FileZilla and Putty to compensate for these for the lack of these tools. Additionally, I'm not able to ditch my Windows system completely, as I need to run full variety of Internet Explorers. As my base system, I have Windows 7 Ultimate, which allows me to run Microsoft Virtual PC, and this allows me to run XP mode applications, and these include Internet Explorer 6, 7 and 8, which allows me to test these browsers. As Macintosh's Safari web browser from Apple is also available on Windows, so having the Windows system available to me allows me to test Safari browser as well. And having Windows available to me, I'd also be able to make use of tools like Photoshop, Microsoft Office and so forth. Although I do make use of the GIMP, which I find perfectly usable for my own needs. But the point is that should I wish to have Photoshop available to me, I have my Windows system up and running. Obviously, if I fully committed to Linux, then I would lose the support for Windows, and then I'd lose the flexibility that would allow me to run softwares like Photoshop. Now, the solution to this paradigm is that we can make use of virtualization, and VirtualBox is such a tool, and I'm going to show you now where we can get VirtualBox. You go to virtualbox.org and you download it from the download section, and you obviously pick the correct download for your system and you install it as per instructions. Additionally to VirtualBox, you're probably going to need a operating system, and from a web developer's perspective, I suggest that you pick a Linux distribution. Linux not only comes with a superior shell, and I find bash scripting is very easy, which is ideal for Linux, but it also gives you the ability to test for web browsers which are only supported in Linux, browsers like Conqueror and so forth. And if you're looking for a Linux system, then you can look at this list over here, and this gives you an idea of what the most popular Linux distributions are. And typically you want to choose a well-known, documented and well-supported system, especially if you're new to Linux. And one of the additional benefits that you have with VirtualBox is it allows you to safely install a Linux system in a way that is abstract from your hardware, and this ensures that you don't void any warranties and so forth. And for this tutorial today, I'm going to go to ubuntu.com, which is a Linux distribution, and I'm going to be using Ubuntu in this tutorial. And to get Ubuntu, you just click on this Get Ubuntu Now button, and you obviously download and install it. And I already have Ubuntu downloaded, and I'm going to install it as I'm going to show you now. So just to show you that I have Ubuntu here, I have it in my downloads file or folder, and you see that it's an ISO file, which means I could burn it to disk, but we don't need to do this with the VirtualBox application, as I'll demonstrate. If this is the first time that you're running VirtualBox, which I've just launched here, you will see a screen like I have in front of me. Now, we use two keywords in VirtualBox, the term host and guest. Now, the host system is the one that's running the VirtualBox application, together with any guests that are running inside the VirtualBox application. And the guest system is a system which is set up inside the VirtualBox application. And to set up a new guest, we click on this button over here, the new button, and we're going to be taken through a wizard which pretty much guides us through the installation. In the next window we're going to assign a name. We're going to pick a name like Ubuntu which matches the operating system, and doing so usually we get a default filled in for us if VirtualBox recognizes the system name. So just click on next here, and importantly in the next menu is where your installation can go wrong. You need to bear in mind that VirtualBox is an application. It runs on top of your host or your base system, and therefore you always need enough memory for your base system to run smoothly, in addition to the memory that you assign here to any guests, in addition to any applications that you want to run alongside VirtualBox. So for example, if I had a 2 GB system and I needed a gigabyte to run my base system smoothly, I wouldn't be able to assign over a gigabyte, or even a gigabyte would be far too generous to VirtualBox. But given my system, I have 6 GB here available to me, I could easily assign a gigabyte, which is generous, to Ubuntu, and I'd still have 5 GB for all my base system requirements, in addition to any applications that I want to run alongside VirtualBox. So just click on next once you've allocated memory, and now we're given a virtual hard disk wizard, and note that it suggests here an 8 GB size. We're going to increase that, and initially that's just big enough for you to install your operating system on. So just stick with the default and create next, and then we pick the default VirtualBox disk image, select next, and then we choose dynamically allocated as opposed to fixed size, which I'll explain in the next screen. Click on next, and by default you get the name which matches the name for the guest, and over here we get the option to increase the memory. Now had we chosen fixed size in the previous option, then what it would do, it would take 128 GB out of our existing capacity of our hard disk. In other words, it would subtract 128 GB chunk out of our disk space. It would also increase the installation time significantly, so this is why we chose the dynamic option instead. And choosing the dynamic option, basically we're saying to the Ubuntu installation that as you need more hard disk space, you can use up to 128 GB. So the Ubuntu installation, obviously it will grow as we begin to use it, but it will never exceed 128 GB. In the next screen you just verify your hard disk, and then you finalize everything through the create option here. And now we have the Ubuntu as a guest here, and we're not able to run it yet because we need to configure the operating system as well as additional settings. So I'm going to go to the settings tab over here, and I'm going to go through them. If you go to the system tab here, I presume you don't have a floppy disk, so you can remove that, and you usually want your hard disk as the first entity, so you can push it up, and your CD just below that. If you go to your processor here, you may want to familiarize yourself with your processor a bit. To give you an example, I have a quad-core processor and it's dual threaded, so I have 8 processors, and I could assign 3 processors here to VirtualBox. And under the acceleration, you normally have these options filled in for you if VirtualBox detects them. Now you may have support for these technologies, but they may be disabled in your BIOS. Again, you need to consult your documentation for your processor, and if they're disabled and you think they should be enabled, then you can look in your BIOS menu. Usually this is the F2 option when you start up your host operating system. And obviously if you have them, you want to enable them. They greatly enhance the virtualization experience when making use of tools like VirtualBox. Under the display option here, we're going to assign 128 megabytes. I have a gigabyte graphic card, so I'm able to assign something like 128 megabytes, which is the maximum. I'm also going to enable 3D acceleration, and and then I'm going to go to the storage tab over here. Normally our hard disk that we created is incorrectly placed under SATA controller, so we remove it through this icon over here, and then we add it again under IDE controller instead by clicking on that icon, and we choose an existing disk, and usually you get a pop-up of the disk that you removed under SATA. Click on the disk again and ensure that it's the primary master disk, and then click on your CD disk file here, or your CD drive, and ensure that that is the primary slave. And if you click on the CD image over here beside it, you'll notice that we get the opportunity to pick a CD disk file, and this is ideal for the installation that we're about to do. So we're going to go and pick the Ubuntu ISO file as the installation CD file, and these other options here like networking and that, I encourage you to look online. I know networking, you could do server network from your host to your guest system, although I've never used this option, so I can't advise you on it. The shared folders option, you can set this up when your guest is running, and it also it requires the installation of guest editions, which I'm going to go to in my next tutorial. So I'll show you in 2 tutorials time how we set up shared folders. And with everything ready now, we can start the Ubuntu system, and we just wait for the wizard to appear, and this is pretty straightforward. The wizard is going to prompt you for your username for your system, a password, and some geographical settings to identify your location and to install in the correct language and so forth. And if you've installed the operating system before, then this is pretty easy. And I'm going to continue capturing my screen until the wizard appears, and obviously you just need to go through the installation process in Ubuntu, and then you're done. So you see here now, you just simply pick the install Ubuntu option and you go through the installation process. And this shows you how to install VirtualBox together with a guest. And this is part 3 of my series of tutorials showing you my development environment. Thank you for watching.